So, and
First win in like a dozen games.
another anonymous user just subscribed. Thank you for your support of chess events and of Twitch TV/chess. So, okay, regardless of how we got there, and certainly Magnus turned what was a brilliant opening with Wesley's king on d8, right, into a terrible middle game, but a win's a win, and Wesley So has stopped the bleeding officially.
He's stopped the bleeding. He's gone back to this Coley system. I'm not exactly sure why. He had a good position last game with
E4.
what he had. Yeah, but let's see. Two in a row for Wesley. That's what he's
in a row. He gonna do two. I feel like we're talking to the Cleveland Indians here back in the movie Major League. If you win again, that's called two in a row. If you win three, that's called a winning streak, and that's what we need to mount here.
Yeah. So, okay, this is a pretty standard position all across the board. And Black plays around this knight on e5. He puts maybe the knight on g6. Sometimes he gets a knight e4 whenever he's got the chance, but you don't take on e5 until the time is right. But yeah, they're still in theory here, actually.
White will prepare for either moves like knight df3 to reinforce the knight, or look for you can't really look for a chance to play c4 anymore after a move like g3, because you wouldn't really want to open up that bishop on b7. But maybe he is going to go for it.
Yeah, he might go.
He might go for c4. I was highlighting.
I don't like c4 for white. Yeah, you don't want to open up that bishop on b7.
And he agrees. Maybe the rook on c1 was more just about protecting this, overprotecting this c2 pawn against the glaring tower on c8. But after b4, I think we're going to see knight b3, knight c5 by Wesley.
Knight b3, knight c5. So who's getting there first? I mean, Black's going to have to contest that idea. That is probably a bit too much space to allow a knight on c5 and a knight on e5. So after knight b3, you might be able to play knight e4. These are always hard to evaluate.
But I feel like this is an edge that's creeping with white, and something tells me that as well, just in terms of their time management. You see Magnus again falling behind on the clock. As he's done a couple times here in the 3 minutes. So
well, he is looking at possibilities of sacrificing a pawn. I'll give you an example. Bishop takes e5, d e5, knight e4. You trade everything off. You put a rook on c4, and you try to give up all that, reroute your knight to d5. You're down a pawn, but you have all the light squares, and you have the c file to work with. So before
I just highlighted your line there for the fans. I think that was a great
and you
line.
give up the pawn, and you try to play rook c4, knight e7, knight
Eric,
e5.
everyone. Eric, you just predicted another Magnus Carlsen approach. Although Wesley says, I don't like that in game either, despite
it was a very practical approach, because he gives up the pawn, but then he gets the initiative. So I think this is a good read by Wesley to avoid it, but that's obviously an accomplishment for Black if he's able to just play knight e4 and get away with it.
Magnus consistently looking over to his right into what seems to be a TV in the living room. There's some theories bouncing around that he's watching the Real Madrid match right now, we know he's a Real Madrid fan, Eric. So just a fun little food for thought.
I'm also a fan of Real Madrid, so no issues there.
Yep. All right, well, here comes knight to d2 for Wesley. I still, he plays it. I like white to get a second win in a row in this game right now. I feel like he's dealt with this practical shot by Magnus with knight e4 well, by kind of, focus on it, strangling the c file. He established this bishop on d4, so now when he does eventually gobble up this e4 knight, Eric, I think it's a much safer edge for white now. What do you think?
I agree. I agree that he's handling it very well. He's playing around. He's not allowing Magnus to get in those exchange sacrifices that make life so much easier. And this way, he's doing it under his way, which is not allowing this bishop on b7 to become a monster.
And Magnus now under a minute. Takes e5 and finds a way to continue to keep it practical, which is what he does.
So bishop takes c4 and f3, Danny. I think he's just winning here. Bishop takes.
Yeah, even.
Oh, there's knight takes d2 after f3.
Okay, but even just take e4, right, and then probably
take e4 and play rook and trade everything off. Well, Magnus is going to do this. He's going to put his bishop on d5. He's going to play f5, and he's going to say, "You're up in exchange, but I really have a powerful bishop on d5 and some control." So
the big trump card for white will be the A and B pawns versus the single A pawn. So if white can, and Wesley knows that, so he immediately starts mobilizing his majority. That's one
Bring
thing you
the
have to
king to
do.
d6. Bring the king to d6. Yeah, both sides have clear plans. The rooks need to get better. They need some open space, open files. You're going to generate that on queen side. Black, obviously very strong in the center of the board with that pawn formation. But you'd like to play around it. Now, b6 is the move you'd like to play as white here and play rook b5.
Yeah, and he's gone for it. I think you're right, that even if you end up losing that b pawn, you don't want to let black get the king to d6 and fully come together. Shout out to Ben Dover, who just subscribed on our Twitch channel. Yeah, rook to b5 looks like it's coming, and I think Magnus is thinking because he's not sure he can hold this endgame anymore. Which, again, would mean 2 in a row for the American and the massive underdog.
So the one thing to watch out for here is don't go for the c4 pawn because it's lined up near the king on e2. There's some pins you might have to walk. I'm not convinced, actually. Like, this a pawn is really hard to push forward. And black, again, this trade of the a for the b pawn, he's going to play rook b3. He's going to play rook b2 with king d4. And he's going to put the bishop on d5. And usually when you see people like lose these positions, it's often the rooks are like connected and working together. I don't see that yet. I see the bishop and the rook working better than the two rooks as right now, right? The rook on d1 really needs to find an active role, and it doesn't have that.
Yeah,
so
now this is the opposite of active, going to f1. But I think this might still be the right plan for Wesley to say, all right, obviously, if I can get the a pawn up, that might give me what I need.
But you need the rook behind the pawn because the bishop on d5 controls a8, and we're almost going to be in a situation here. So he's going for rook takes c3, rook a1. He needs the rook behind the pawn, but we're almost in a situation, Danny, where black will gladly sacrifice the bishop for the a pawn
and have a whole bunch of pawns over here.
Right.
Yep.
So that's what he's aiming for. But Magnus is really low on time here. So Wesley is still pushing and doing well here. But black does have
a very nice move. This move, rook d7.
Well, rook d3 is fantastic because a8 you can just take with the bishop and the d pawns. This is some cold-blooded chess by Magnus. I mean, in terms of producing counterplay, this is pretty remarkable. Rook c1 is what I might have to play here. Rook c1. Yeah. I don't think you can allow rook d1. He's posing a lot of issues. Yeah, rook c1 seemed forced. Rook check.
And if the king moves, there is still a threat of rook takes d5 to remove this bishop, everybody.
There is. Rook takes d5 is a threat. It's funny, both sides have threats here because if Magnus can trade the c-pawn for the a-pawn, black is going to be better in that endgame probably with the bishop and 2 pawns.
He commits the rook back, but if a move like rook takes... I wondered if... Okay, he couldn't get away with rook takes c2 because not enough time in a line like this, but...
Magnus really getting low on time here. He's trying to play f4 and king e5. What he's going to do is he's ready to sacrifice that rook for that a pawn, but claim that he has enough pawns down the board that the rook.
That might be. Well, just what the doctor ordered there.
I'm going to take on c7 and play e3, Danny, and run my king to d4. I'm not sure who's ahead here because if black's king gets to f3, then he's winning. Because I mean. Okay, wait.
We missed rook c5.
No, e2.
You can take
queen, queen.
Isn't it with check? No, because I have the skewer on e8 at the end.
Very nice. So rook c5, e2, queen, and that's a blunder.
Yeah, Magnus.
That is a blunder by Magnus.
Takes queen.
Excellent find, Danny. That a8 queen here, and you got the queen to e8 check.
Oh, but Magnus isn't giving up. He's going to try to work the e pawn forward.
But he's that's a cute little way to end it.